Hello and welcome to the Cheese and Wine Masterclass. I'm Sam Studd and today I'm going to be talking you through some of my favourite cheeses paired with some wines from Handpicked Cellars. Just a few housekeeping matters. First of all, you want to make sure that you've chilled your white wines and you want to make sure that you brought your cheese out at least an hour before we start, just to make sure that it's at room temperature and you get the full array of flavours. Before we get into tasting the wine and the cheese, I wanted to share a few tips that I've learned across the years. The first tip would be that what grows together goes together. So cheeses from a certain province often goes with the wine from the same province. The second tip that I'd like to share with you is that you want the cheese and the wine to complement each other, not oppose each other. And the third tip that I'd like to share is that there is no rules. So what works for me may not work for you, and that's fine. So the first pairing that we're going to explore today is a Veneto DOC Prosecco and a Murray Darling Fiano, and we're going to pair it with a Lacqueron Fort Age Comté. So the first cheese that we're going to try today is our Lacqueron Fort Age Comté. To me, this cheese is my desert island cheese. If I had to pick one cheese that I had to eat for the rest of the life, it'd be this one. Now this cheese is from the Jura, which is on the border of the Swiss and the French Alps. If you've ever seen the cows that look really happy that are walking around in these giant rolling meadows with dandelions everywhere and they've got those big cowbells around their neck, that's where this is from. It takes 500 litres of milk to make one wheel of this cheese, which is a lot. They have these facilities called fruitières, which are cooperatives owned by the farmers. So they pull all the milk in, they make it in these giant cauldrons which are made of copper. They make they're giant discs, they're about 33 kilos when all the moisture's out. And then for me, this is an excellent example of affinage. So the affineur, which is our one is Marcel Petit, will come along, they'll pick up the wheels of cheese, and then this one is matured in a 16th century fort. We went for a flavour profile that's bright and fruity, but still has the depth and flavour that I want to get out of a Comté. So when you're trying Comté, the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that it's at room temperature. And you want to eat from the outside in, and that's the same with every cheese. And the way that they eat it over there when you're trying it is they slice a piece of cheese, they break the top off, and they macerate it with their hands until it gets to room temperature. So when I taste cheese and wine, I like to bring it up to room temperature, put it in your mouth, allow the flavours and the fats to coat your mouth, and then you take a sip of your preferred drink. Yeah. So for me, that one, the fat coats your mouth, the effervescence of the Prosecco cut through it, I could eat that one all day. So if bubbles aren't your thing, the second pairing that we have is a Fiano from the Murray Darling. So once again, I'm going to try this cheese, bring it up to room temperature. Wow, that works really well too. So for me, that's got a lot of citrus, a little bit of melon, and it really cuts through the fat of that cheese, and that's a really nice pairing. So the next pairing that we're going to explore is this Pont l'Evêque from Normandy, and we're going to pair that with a Cab Merlot from Margaret River and a Chardonnay from the Yarra Valley. I'm excited to see how this one turns out. So the next cheese that we're going to try is our Demi Pont l'Evêque. Now this cheese originates from Normandy. Picture Norman cows, which are those beautiful cows that look like robbers. They've got like little spots around their eyes. They're definitely one of my favourite cows. And green rolling hills by the ocean. This one is from the town Pont l'Evêque, hence its name. Now this cheese is a wash rind cheese. And what's interesting about wash rind cheeses is that they were traditionally made by the monks, and they used to call it white meat. So what they do is instead of using a mould to mature the cheese out, they wash the cheese with a brine solution, and they use a bacterial breakdown to help make the creamy paste. When you try this, you should get bacony, smoky notes. So this, I'm just going to show you this wash rind. So as I said, it is a wash rind, so it uses bacteria to mature out. So when you smell this, it's going to smell a little bit like schoolyard socks, but it's going to taste delicious. The French say it should slap you in the face and then kiss you in the mouth. Now this cheese is a little bit young, but as it develops, the bee linens will come out and it will turn orange. Once again, make sure that it comes up to room temperature, because I tell you what, it'll taste so much better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this cheese, I'll break it in half because I've got to talk and taste at the same time, which is actually surprisingly hard. Yum. I'm going to try it with this Chardonnay. To me, that pairing really worked. So the nice fattiness of this is cut through by the citrus of that Chardonnay. I think that's a pretty good pairing. So the second pairing that we have is the Cab Merlot from the Margaret River. I'm going to be honest with you, red wine and cheese, even though that everyone loves it, is often hard. Often because the high tannin content really conflicts with the cheese. But this being a wash rind, it can really stand up to a red wine, so I'll be interested to see how this goes. That's pretty good. That's got pretty low tannins, super juicy. I could eat that one for most of the day, I think. That's a good match. So for the final pairing, we've got a Yarra Valley Cab Sav or a Portuguese Douro paired with a Camembert from Normandy. So the final cheese that we'll be trying today is a Le Concron Petite Camembert. Now this is one of my favourite cheeses, and I know that I say that about all our cheeses, but I'm needed about this one. This is from the same region as the Pont-l'Evêque, so it's from Normandy. My favourite thing about this cheese is that it's the closest thing that you get to a raw milk Camembert without being raw milk. They use this really special culture in it called Haffney algae that brings out the natural flavours within the milk and makes it taste like raw milk. So you should get that sort of like cauliflower, hit you in the top of the palate, almost rotten apple taste when you try this. To me, this one's a little bit like kimchi, which I know is a weird comparison to draw. Once you try it, it might be a bit hard on the nose, and then you'll find yourself coming back to it more and more, and then it will become a staple amongst your diet. So just another hot tip that we have, when you're having cheese at a dinner party, which I know that we're not allowed to have these days, one of the great rules that I like to do is you want to make a gentle suggestion to other people on how to cut the cheese. So some people, there's always one, it's a cheese faux pas, but there's always one guy at the party that comes along and they just take the middle wedge out, and then like they've ruined the whole cheese for everyone. So what I like to do is if you cut the cheese in half and then you cut it like a pie, and then everyone knows how to cut the cheese properly rather than ruining the cheese for everyone. All right, so the first pairing that I'm going to try is the Portuguese. Wow, that's really interesting. For me, I get like dark plum, quite a high like chalky tannin, and that really cuts through the raw milk feel of that cheese. That's a good pairing. I'm all about that one. So the final pairing that we're going to try is the Cab Sav from the Yarra Valley with this Camembert. I'm going to mix things up. I'm going to try the wine first and then try the cheese. So to me, that's got like lots of red berries, quite fruity. So for me, that's a good example of a cheese and wine that don't match. I thought it was going to work really well. The wine's beautiful, but the flavours just feel a little bit contradictory, and it's probably my least favourite pairing of the whole session. So as I said at the beginning, pairings are different for different people. For me, that one really didn't work, and I didn't hide it particularly well. But for the next person, that might be their favourite pairing. So pairing's an individual journey, and for me that was just one that didn't work. So that's the end of the masterclass. I hope you guys learned something. I definitely feel better now than I did when I started. We'd encourage you to share your experiences on social media with the hashtag handpickedwines. All right, thanks.